Hello, this is Joe again from Carême cooking classes, and today we're going to make hot cross buns because it's Easter next week and they're nice to make, they're fun. I'm trying to make a shorter video because most of the stuff for bread making we covered in last week's wholemeal bread video, so we just have to sort of follow the recipe really. So the first thing we're going to do is mix up the yeast, pretty straightforward. We take some warm water, I measured it out, came prepared. We take 1 tablespoon of sugar. You can use any sort of sugar, same as for the wholemeal bread, and some yeast. I put my yeast into little bits because the fresh yeast, it won't last forever, so I've put most of it in little bits in the freezer. So I've just got a little bit left here of the fresh yeast and crumbling it up, putting it into the water. There we go, give it a bit of a stir. And then leave that to do its thing. There we go. Of course you could use dried yeast and that would be just perfectly fine, but make sure if, especially if you're using dried yeast, that it froths up well, because dried yeast, sometimes you get dead cells in the dried yeast and it is not as good. We'll come back in a minute when it's ready. Okay, I'm back. I've adjusted things so you can see the bench, I hope. And we're going to carry on. Can you see the yeast there? He's floating, woohoo! So that's doing well. So we're just going to toss everything in the bowl and mix it together. Making sure we get whatever sugar's there from the bottom of there. That's good. Following our recipe, we add more warm water. So this recipe is all warm water because we want it to rise quickly. We're in a rush to eat the hot cross buns. Then we want 900 grams of flour. I always use plain flour. I use plain flour where other people would use strong flour. Strong flour is bread flour or high grade flour, but I often like plain flour. I like the results you get. I just do. It's a complicated subject, but oh, you can use what you want, you know, it's a free world apparently. There we go. Tablespoon of salt. Oops, forgot to get my tablespoon. Of course. And once again, we're guessing. Then we want cinnamon, nutmeg. Well, we're using, cinnamon is really important. Oh, by the way, if you ever forget the salt, you're dead. That's it. Just give up and go home. Your bread will taste like porridge without salt in it. It is pretty much inedible. I'm guessing tablespoons from teaspoons because they will fit in my jar. But I've had a bit of experience at measuring, so I kind of know what's going on a bit. And then for the other spices, I say nutmeg, ginger and cardamom because I like them, but I want a mixture. You can of course use mixed spice. Once again, it is apparently a free world. What you do in the comfort and privacy of your kitchen is up to you. But I like a mixture. And I like to use them, I like to mix them up myself, but that's just me. You can do what you want. And then we want 100 grams of melted butter. I did play my head slightly and melt some, but you want it just melted, ideally. 1 egg. It's starting to look quite colourful. Then there's mixed peel and currants, but I normally mix it in a mixer. We're going to mix it by hand, obviously. But I normally mix it in a mixer and it does, I'm going to start mixing it by hand and talk. When you're mixing in a mixer, there is a risk of like mashing the raisins when you're doing it. So I normally add them towards the end. There's not such a risk when you're doing it by hand, but I'll start off by. Same story with these, I've never mixed these by hand. I always use a mixer. So This mixture is drier than the wholemeal bread. This is why you watch the video, to see the differences. Quite a lot drier, isn't it? But it's quite easy to knead. Mixy, mixy. And once again, I'll put a link on to say when the kneading finishes, because that is not the highlight. Oof. This is an enriched dough, so it's got butter and egg in it. So that's why we're not so worried about leaving it for a long time to rise, and we're using warm water and getting it to rise quickly, because we're getting our flavour from the ingredients. We're not getting it with the wholemeal bread. We got the flavour from, well, I mean from the ingredients, but a lot of the flavour is from the rising, the way you rise it. Whereas this one, really the flavour is from the ingredients. Let's face it, you know, you put cinnamon and currants and stuff, yeah, it's going to taste good. And butter and eggs, crikey. So it's much drier, but it's still getting quite elastic. The same way the wholemeal is. It doesn't need hours of kneading. It's quite elastic, so it's a bit hard work. You can get a bit of exercise, I suppose. Tum-tum. Alright, that's looking, the consistency is not, like the amount of kneading is not vital, it's just to get it all going. I'm going to add some currants. I don't have enough currants. In the interest of reality, I didn't rush out and buy more. I said I'll go with what I've got and I'll add some raisins. Currants are the most traditional, and currants give the best result, I reckon. But raisins and sultanas are good too. So we're going to mix in now. We need, it's supposed to be 250 of currants. I'll put enough currants. It's nearly 200 grams, especially if we get the last ones. And then I'll make up the difference with raisins. Yeah, 250. And then mixed peel as well. You don't have to put in mixed peel, but I really like it. But I always have to buy a fresh packet because it doesn't. They don't give it a very good date on that. My recipe says 50 grams because I like it. But if you don't like it, you can just leave it out. It's fine. There we go. Mix that in. They'll take a little bit of mixing in. We can do it though. And after this, rising, dividing the shaping into buns is the thing you want to see, because that is the interesting thing. There's a particular technique. I like lots of currants in it. They're boring if they don't have enough currants. You can see mine have enough currants. And the other fun thing is, of course, making the crosses on top. We'll do that last, obviously. Well, no, the best part is the easy one, but still. That is the currants mixed in, and the dough is pretty well, it's quite springy. I'm having to really push. I think that that's pretty good. I shall leave it there, especially in the interest of a speedy video. And we can come back in a minute. I'll leave that, the kitchen's warmer today, thank goodness, so it shouldn't take so long to rise. And I'll leave that covered with a tea towel or something, and I'll come back soon. Hello, we're back. The dough has risen, and look, it's amazing. If there was any doubt whether the dough has risen, you push it with a finger, and if the impression stays, then it's risen pretty well. Okay, so we're going to divide the dough and roll it into balls for buns. So, there we go. First thing is, same as the wholemeal bread, we squish out the excess carbon dioxide from the dough, and you do find, I must say, that errant currants and raisins go running off all the time. Okay, that's fine, that's all it needs. And then I'm going to cut it with my dough cutter. I'm going to cut it into 20, this one. So 4 by 5. I'm just going to roll out a few, and then you can imagine the rest. So this is going to be a 2. And here's, so that's 5 pretty even ones. I've done this before. If they don't turn out even, look, it's for you, it doesn't matter. It is easier if they're even, but it's not really not the end of the world. So there's 10, you can imagine the other 10. Now there is a trick to rolling out buns. You go like this, and you end up with buns. Oh, they need a little more. But the trick, how you do it, and I've got a buttered tray here to put them on to rise, and you're imagining 4 rows of 5. The trick is, because this hand had to teach this hand how to do it, I used to be able to do it with one hand, not the other. The trick is, you hold your hand sort of in a cup, turn the cup upside down, and it has a piece of dough in there. It's just a lump of dough, okay? And you don't have the dough, you don't have the bench floured, okay? And you squash. First of all, you squish the cup thing down, and you so that the dough rolls round on the bench, and it sticks to the bench. And it rolls around on the bench. It rolls around on the bench in a circle underneath in the cup, okay? And then you lighten up on the pressure. You make a bigger hollow under here, and it turns out as a bun. You get that from that. It's sort of magic, really. So I'll do. Oh, damn! See, now they're floury ones. They won't work. I'll do some more. That's you sort of you push down into them. What you're doing is creating surface tension on the outside too, which is always good for bread. So we're going to make 5. There you go. We'll do some more for fun. And what you're doing is you're actually doing a spiral, and it's coming up from the bottom. Squishing down, pushing down, pushing down, pushing down quite hard, and rolling it around on the bench, okay? And then lightening up your touch, and then just sort of rolling it around. Now that one didn't turn out perfectly, but it's not bad. Sometimes when you do it, these ones might turn so you see better. You can see a little hole in the bottom where it's sort of spiraled up into it. And commercial buns are done that way too. They have a machine which does it. It comes down, it divides the dough, it cuts it, or whatever it does, I don't know. And then it comes down and goes rolly, and then it sort of rolls up, lifts up a bit. It does them all at once, quite clever. but we do them 1 by 1 or 2 by 2. So there's what are we up to? 7. This is 9. My right hand always does them better than the left hand. Yeah, look, see, that's better than that one. 8. Lots of currants missing. 9. Flour. It has to stick to the bench to make it work. Push down, push down, push down, push down. Lighten up. Nice bun shape. You can do it a different way, which I'll show you the other way. It works better for bigger ones, where once again it's not floured. We're just imagine we're doing an enormous one. You know, I'm going to cut it up and make more small buns later. I'll tell you where the end is, so you can switch off later. Pull it towards you, turn it around a bit, tiny bit, pull it towards you. It's actually the same action, but on a bigger scale. And you'll end up with a bigger. So I suppose you could do that with a small bun, although I've never tried it. But that's how you can shape a big loaf, if you want to shape a big loaf into a round. See how you get a shaped loaf out of a lump. Because surface tension is always something you want when you're doing bread. It's one of those technical things, don't worry. We just try and get that result. You can do blobs if you want to. If you're struggling with the bun shape, don't get too worked up. Okay, I'm going to do the rest of them. I'm going to cut this one up. Then I'm going to let them rise again. The first rise took about an hour. The second rise for bread is an interesting generalisation, is normally about half the time, so it should be about half an hour. And then we'll come back again. Okay, here we go. We're back again, and the buns have risen. Look at that, hurrah. So we want to put their crosses on and put them in the oven. I mean, they look great, but they'll be better with crosses on. It's just one of those tradition things. The crosses, you can do crosses, you can cut crosses, you can make crosses out of short pastry. That's 2 easy ways of doing it, or you can pipe on crosses, which is what we're going to do. I use about half a cup, maybe a bit more, of flour and about a tablespoon of sugar. And then mix it up with a bit of water. Ooh, maybe a bit much. Ooh, I think that's a bit much. We can change it if it's wrong. Oh no, that's actually, no, we might even need more. We want something which will pipe. So we're going to need a tiny bit more water. I didn't measure the water, sorry, but I'll show you what the consistency we're looking for. That will pipe nicely, won't it? And that should be enough to make the crosses for our buns. Now, here's how we do the piping bag. You can use a little plastic bag, but we don't have so many plastic bags anymore, and this is the proper way of doing a piping thing. A little piece of baking paper. I fold it over to make the tip neater, and then hold it in one hand, fold it up, fold the other one around, and you get a cone. Okay, I'll just show you the folding again. Fold one over, it's not rocket science, is it? But you want to make sure that you've got a small hole, because if you get a hole too big, then your crosses will turn out the wrong size. Baking paper is slippery. Yeah, we're going to be good. Baking paper is slippery. This is how real bakers do it. It's such fun. So we hold on to it and put the cross mix in it. And then we're going to fold the top down. And there we go. Tip for piping. Keep the top closed so that it comes out the bottom. It's not rocket science. Fold it. Fold. fold, fold, yeah, keep folding. And then you get a very neat little piping bag. Now you'll have to practice a bit. Here we go, practicing. Oh, look at that. Yeah. There are lots of tricks to piping, but we're not going to mess about. We're just going to, if it's too skinny, then we would trim a bit off the tip. Yeah, we could make it a bit fatter. No, it's going to be fine. So we're going to pipe crosses. Keep touch to begin with, and then lift, because if you are wobbly, it will it sort of straightens itself up as you go. Could be a bit fatter, couldn't it? It'll be fine. Because if I change it now, they'll be different. As you go with the little paper cone ones, they do tend to, I'm going to go all one way and then all the other, obviously. They do tend to expand as they go. So my last one is going to normally ends up a bit wider. And then normally you touch to end. Yep. Oops, dribble. And then the other way. To make crosses. There we go. Then we stick them in the oven. Depends on your oven. I would say fairly hot, not as hot as for bread, just like plain bread. I would say 180, 190, and they look just, yeah, stunning. And we'll have a look at them when they come out. Great. So the hot cross buns are out of the oven. Hurrah. They look absolutely fabulous. They smell gorgeous. I'm just going to get them out of their tray and show you something. Oops, hot. They're hot but not boiling because I waited while I did something which I'll show you in a minute. They've stuck just where the crosses are joined to the tray. There you go. I'll get them out in two lots. Getting them all out in one lot is too hot. Damn me, they're hot. Oh. Yep. Okay, there's one lot. And here's the other lot. They are better. They're going to look better if they're glazed. So I've got some sugar and water here. I put them in the microwave, but you can just boil them up in a pot. There we go. And if you, so like, I don't know, equal quantities of sugar and water. And if you glaze them with that, they look, I don't know if you can see them. I'll bring them closer. Trails of sugar. They look much more professional. They look like bought ones. Yum. So we're set for hot cross buns. Alright, not sure what we're going to do next time. Not sure if we'll do a video or a recipe, so keep an eye out for the newsletter. Stephen wants us to do there's a lentil and kumara curry, which he really likes. It's his favourite. He thinks we should do that one. That would be fun. We could. See how we go. But that, mate, is the hot cross buns. Looking good. Thanks for watching.